I look back on it and feel like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and I was pulled back. And I'm upfront with my kids about, my past. I want to be clear and let them know, like, I'm a sinner too. It's only by God's grace that I am where I am.
We're joined by Paul Korns, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names, but I think you are the first person that I actually don't know.
Okay. So
this is going to be exciting,
cool.
A little bit different. We're going to ask you super intimate questions. You're going to give us our social security at the end of the interview here. But no, actually, this is Matt's old roommate. You went to Geneva.
Yeah.
Yep. How was that?
It was good. We were roommates. Well, we actually lived together only for 2 years. The 1 year we were across the hall from each other.
And you lived with the RA.
I lived with the RA our sophomore year.
I will say, living with you were pretty neat. Like,
Yeah.
We weren't like the same. We think, Jordan, we pulled you down a little bit. You were pretty studious and diligent. And
Yeah,
we were kind of like not that way.
Yeah, you guys were, you would bring me down sometimes.
You ever hear that youth group analogy where, like, if you're standing on a chair, it's much easier to be pulled down than it is to pull someone up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
us. I always worked pretty hard when I was at Geneva with my grades and all.
What did you major at?
So I started as just history, and then I added biblical studies, I think my sophomore year. So I graduated with both history and biblical studies. Really got into languages, doing Hebrew with Byron Curtis,
wow,
which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then from there decided to go get my master's in biblical languages.
And where'd you get that at?
Up at Gordon Conwell.
Okay.
It's like 45 minutes north of Boston.
Okay.
It was great. I love New England. It's awesome. It's full of history, which of course I loved. It's beautiful. And it was good for me too, because I needed some distance from my life back home in Pittsburgh. By the time I left Massachusetts, I was already dating and engaged with my wife. So I transitioned into that pretty quickly, which was probably a good thing
if
for
I
me.
remember correctly, you went to study biblical languages and you wanted to be like an archaeologist.
Yeah, I thought the goal was to be Indiana Jones. That was my end goal at the time. So I started biblical languages, and then I actually added an MA in Old Testament too. I did Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Akkadian, and a semester of Ugaritic too.
But you're a landscaper now.
I am a landscaper now, so it was money well spent.
That's quite a pivot.
So the way that came about was after my first year up at Gordon, I came home for the summer, and I needed a job. And my one brother was working at a golf course, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come and work with me?" So that's what I did. I got a job at the golf course, and I just absolutely loved it. I liked working outside. I liked working with the machinery. I liked working with my hands.
You're also kind of a meticulous person, so I feel like golf course maintenance fit with your
definitely.
personality.
I mean, it depends on the golf course for sure, but yeah, that's definitely part of it. I loved watching golf growing up. My grandfather was a big golfer, so I loved watching golf with him when I was growing up. So I was working at a nice private club up there, and that was where I really started to consider getting into turf maintenance. By the time I was done with my biblical languages degree, I was so tired and burnt out of school because to really do anything, to do what I wanted to do, I was going to need a doctorate. And the idea of more schooling after Gordon was enough to just fill me with dread.
Yeah.
So I couldn't handle it anymore and decided, you know what, I like doing this golf course stuff
Yeah.
and decided to make a huge life change.
Yeah. I'm just kind of registering that is such a crazy.
Yeah, it was a huge change.
Yeah.
It was a huge change.
Yeah. Do you still keep up with like any of your language stuff? Do you?
No.
Yeah. That's the way I'd be.
That was like, if you don't use it, you lose it pretty
Yeah.
quick. I can still do a lot of Hebrew.
Yeah.
I can read it. Remembering vocabulary though and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you used to talk to us in our Hebrew names in college.
Yeah.
So I was Matai.
Yeah.
You were Shaul.
Yeah.
I took Hebrew when I was in seminary, and I remember like you were always in my mind as I was reading, and I was like, Shaul, there he is. I just appreciate you giving me the foundation.
When I first got started with Hebrew, because you read right to left, I used to get dizzy a lot. I would have to take breaks.
Yeah. So when you attended Geneva, were you a believer then? Or?
That's a complicated question. Maybe. I was shortly after graduation, for sure. College, I think, for a lot of people, was a time where I let loose and wasn't practicing following faith at all.
Yeah.
I had always been raised going to church, and thought that maybe I did believe. And then once I was out on my own, I realized it wasn't really my own faith, that I was going through the motions. And so when I was left to my own devices, I let it all go.
Yeah. That's exactly the same experience I had. Because at Geneva, I grew up in the OPC, Reformed, all those, great stuff. But the second I got out there, I was like, wow, all right. I don't know if I'm actually a believer.
Yeah.
Looking back, I was like, I could confidently say, and sadly, but I wasn't.
And I knew you in college, obviously. So, we've known each other at this point, if I'm doing the calculations correctly.
Yeah.
23, 24 years, something like that.
We met like right during the first couple weeks, like during even orientation, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even believe the way our lives have turned out based on knowing you. Not saying you were like a big degenerate or anything, but we were way different back then.
Yeah.
It's great to see how God works.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever even talked to you. Guys are weird. We don't have like a lot of intimate conversations. I imagine women sit down together and they hold hands and they light candles and they talk to each other about feelings. We just kind of make jokes, do Trump impersonations. Wow. Like, we just do nonsense.
You're gross.
I don't know if I've ever even asked you.
Good one.
That was good. I don't even know if I've even asked you, like, what changed? Because, like, for me, like, I'm glad I've known you all these years, but it's almost like two versions of you, to be honest. Like, I think back to our college days, and it's only by the grace of God that both of us are married with families and stuff. So I'm curious to hear more about particularly how God got a hold of you. And you said maybe you were a Christian. I agree. It's never like a clear black and white.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't a Christian, then I was struck by lightning and I was.
Yeah.
There's like messiness in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how God in his providence got a hold of you and started started bringing you along and revealing himself to you more.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of all right. Well, I'll just start from the beginning. So like I said, I did go to church growing up. My childhood was not always the best. My father was an alcoholic and a drug addict. He left when I was about 8 or 9, which he voluntarily did. It was the right choice on his. It's not like he just randomly left.
Yeah.
He knew it was good for him to leave. So I give him credit for that. He had gotten hurt when I was young, really young, and couldn't work anymore. And so he had developed a lot of substance problems dealing with that. And he was not a believer. He was angry at God for a lot of the things that happened in his life. And so that had a profound impact on me growing up. I was sad a lot, but it didn't always register or I didn't like consciously always think of that. And so, like I said, he left when I was about 8 or 9. The last time I saw him, I was 12. We used to meet up sometimes just to catch up, get to see him.
Yeah.
And he showed up very, very drunk. We had to make sure he got back to his apartment. And, after that, my mom would ask, hey, do you want to see him? Do you want to try and meet up? We would always get dinner at Old Country Buffet. And I was like, no, I don't want to see him. I'm not interested. I don't want to see him. And then when I was 17, right before I graduated high school, he died. Fairly certain it was overdose.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And that sadness just became anger. And so this all happened right before I left for Geneva. And going back a step, because of the way because I didn't really have too much of a father figure in that first part of my life, the first half of my life, my grandfather was very, very important to me. I loved him like a father. He died when I was 16. And so I felt really shook.
Can I just interject a bit? I mean, I met you when you were 18, maybe, starting
Yeah.
college. It's so interesting to me to think back now because you don't know what people have gone through. I'll say my first impression of you was you were kind of like a stereotypical brooding teenager, like you used to walk around campus, headphones on.
Yeah.
You look like a serious guy. Like you honestly were cool. Like you look cool. I know it's kind of dorky to admit. You look like a guy who wasn't trying to impress anybody.
Yeah.
Used to wear like hemp jewelry. You look like a Dave Matthews fan. I know you are. But, you kind of walked around campus, keeping to yourself, headphones on, and I just thought, like, that guy looks cool. My first impression was, like, you just looked like you weren't trying to impress anybody, which is, like, what real actual cool people do, and I wasn't that way. You could probably comment on that.
It was more along, I'm not a naturally social person, and so I had zero interest in getting to know anyone, to a degree. But yeah, I just wanted to be left alone, basically.
Yeah, it's just interesting to know, like, kind of more of the background. I mean, I guess I knew that knowing you in college, but I just didn't know that at first. It's like a reminder when you see people who are brooding or you don't know what they're going through. It's a reminder to try to be gracious and kind to people, but no, it's cool to hear in context now. I didn't know that. I don't know if I knew the timeline that it was like 17 when your father passed. It was, right before Geneva.
Right before Geneva.
I'll add this. This is just kind of a funny side note. Whenever I first met you, I kind of always knew our destinies were intertwined. I know that's like weird to say. We used to always joke about how like we were destined to be mortal enemies.
Yeah,
it's kind of a weird thing. We had some rocky times, but I'm glad we're friends still. It's kind of funny how it all works out.
Yeah,
but I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
The context is like so interesting. To hear in this, kind of in retrospect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And my mom remarried when I was 14, which was one of the happiest days of my life. He's just my dad. I love him very much. Looking back, I didn't realize how much I needed that male figure in my life. Just to have a man at home was huge. Yeah. And it made such a difference. So that was really big. But, once I got to Geneva and I was on my own, and I don't know if it was because I had like repressed a bunch of stuff and I just didn't want to deal with it. And it was just like all coming up. And, I started, even before Geneva, I was always trying to look and try and get into whatever I could. I always probably seemed like a good kid and I knew how to put on the front. But I was always trying to get into whatever sort of mischief. I could, drinking or whatever other substances I could get a hold of. And so when I got to Geneva, especially, that's where things just kind of started to go slowly off the rails. At first, it was just fun, hanging out with friends. And then it started getting worse and worse. Drinking by myself, drinking at early mornings of the day, drinking a little bit before class even. It got to a point where it was shortly after graduation, and I knew I was going to seminary of all places. Like I felt some real internal guilt about that. It was at that point, a little bit after graduation, where I realized I was becoming what I hated. I was becoming the type of man that my father was.
Yeah.
And I remember laying in bed and thinking, praying to God, and be like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be angry all the time. I can't physically just feel like crap all the time. I'm tired of fighting, basically. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen or where this is going to lead, but I just can't do this anymore. And it's been a slow progression ever since. Yeah. It's that process of sanctification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your story is actually very interesting to me. I feel like we're the same person. My dad died when I was like 3 or 4, right around there.
Yeah.
Mom was a drug addict.
Yeah.
Was raised by my grandparents. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same way. When I went to Geneva, mm-hmm. as much as I want to pick on Geneva, I think God put Geneva into my life for some weird reason, being exposed to that constantly. Where if I would have gone to St. Francis, Pitt, wherever else that, got mm-hmm. offers at the time, mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd be where I'm sitting today, but, repressing that, all that stuff, it's like, and having the outlets of alcohol, drugs. And it took me a lot longer than it sounds maybe you, but like as law school, it was kind of the same thing. It was like going off the rails. Yeah. And I remember sitting there, I was like, I gotta stop doing what I'm doing. Like, this is not mm-hmm. conducive to anything. And, it's just a lot of anger working through that type of stuff there. But it's sanctification. Yeah. I remember, I tell a story all the time. I remember listening to Gerstner. Gerstner's who saved me.
Right.
God used Gerstner. Just YouTube videos. He wasn't living at the time. And he had a talk on sanctification. He says, the Christian life is ups and downs. Yeah. But if you remember that God has sent his son and he is sitting at the right hand of the throne there, that the battle's already been won. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the thing that saved me. It was like, you know what? I'm going to have ups and downs in my life, but if I'm focused on glorifying God, that's going to be the awesome thing. Yeah. Because, I still sit today. I still struggle with crazy stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm calling myself a Christian. Meanwhile, I'm over here doing X, Y, and Z. Right. And it's like, you can talk to my wife. She'll tell you the problems I have. My kids probably could tell you the problems I have.
It's the same here.
Your story, it's very comforting. It's actually kind of a weird thing. I was like, wow, I'm glad I'm not the only one that kind of went through something very similar.
I was just having a conversation with an employee of mine on Friday. We just started to talk a little bit about our backgrounds, and he also had a very rough childhood. And I told him, I was like, if it wasn't for the grace of God and my mother, I would not be where I am, who I am. Who knows? God knows where. Yeah. Probably much, much worse.
Yeah.
So
this is one of the reasons we call this show Legacy Rebuilders. Mm-hmm. Is it sounds like we all have like baggage. Mm-hmm. My upbringing wasn't perfect either, and no one, I think, is handed down this like perfect inheritance of like the idyllic family, the patriarch father who's got it all together, mm-hmm. and you kind of fantasize about that, mm-hmm. but we don't necessarily get that. In God's providence, he has us walk through difficulty in life, through these kind of imperfect, what we wouldn't choose for ourselves, but we have what a cool privilege we have to kind of be a part of this, pivoting away from, like you said, you didn't want to become what you hated.
Yeah.
God in his mercy towards you showed you the ugliness of that.
Yeah.
Allowed you to experience it as a kid, allowed you to experience it as a grown up, kind of to feel the darkness of it. He's like, all right, you want to pursue that? Here's how it feels like. What do you think of that? And in his mercy, that leads you to repentance. And I know you now, and I don't want to get all emotional and feely here, but it's beautiful to see what God has done in your life, and you have a beautiful family. The same is true for me. I mean, you knew me as a college student. It's weird, I didn't know you back then, but I imagine it's very similar. You guys all have beautiful families. God has been so merciful to you. None of us deserve it. I'm just thinking, as far as the way God has worked in your life, how do you view that now when you're thinking about your kids and the inheritance, the legacy that you're kind of passing to them now? Like, how do you view how your father, formed you? How you're trying to form them? How do you view your past, and how do you navigate that now with your kids?
Yeah. So I look back on it and feel like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and I was pulled back. And I'm upfront with my kids about my past, things that happened, age appropriate. But I want to be clear and let them know, I'm a sinner too. It's only by God's grace that I am where I am. And so, I want to be the type of man that can admit to my kids, hey, I sinned here in this instance. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? That's important. That's been something that's important to my wife and I, for our kids to see that, we're sinners too. We're on the same path. I hate to say the word journey. We're on the same journey as you, but we're just further down the road, Yeah. And so that's been important to us, raising the kids.
Do you view it as a rebuilding effort? So I think I didn't finish my thought, but we're rebuilding the legacy. We don't have it perfectly handed down that we can then in turn hand it down. You're kind of starting over sometimes in some ways.
I feel so I've come to realize, what you had sort of touched on a little bit before, there's no perfect family. Yeah. Every family has some degree of baggage, some more than others. And so I'm taking it as starting from where I am with me. And if I can set my kids up in a better position than myself, then I'll be happy. And I don't want to sit here and say I had the worst childhood. There were lots of good things. There were lots of good times. I had a great extended family. Like I said, my mom was the best. And my stepdad, when he came along too, the best.
Is your mom still living?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom, my stepdad.
Yeah, I love your parents. They're great parents.
Yeah. I think you're one of the first people that, step parents are always, nice at times, but you're the first person that I think I've really heard. Oh man, I was really glad my mom got remarried, because a lot of times it's oh yeah, that's my stepdad.
Yeah, it's no. It was huge in my life when my mom got married. And I needed that male figure in my life. I love my dad a lot. There was never a point where my stepdad was actually one of our scout leaders. That's how my parents met. And
I was a Boy Scouts too.
Yeah,
dude.
Cool. That's cool.
Another nerd.
And so, I first knew him as Mr. Planick, and he had a son, now my brother Ben, who was 2 years older than me. So we were friends, and I really liked Mr. Planick at Scouts. And one day my mom was just like, "Hey, what would you think if John, Mr. Planick, and I were to start dating?" great. That's
Heck yeah.
awesome. Ben would come over and we'd play video games, and it was awesome. And that was really, really important for me looking back now. And I asked my dad for advice all the time. I'm going to be in trouble when he's not around, because I always feel like I'm asking him, like, well, how do I do this, or what would you do? Like, I asked him what he thought about me marrying my wife. And a funny story, one time when we first got our apartment in Muse, we were having a plumbing issue, and at that point I didn't really know a whole lot about plumbing or anything like that. So I said, hey, Dad, I'm having this problem with the kitchen sink. Could you come over and help? He said, sure, that's no problem. And he comes over, and my dad he's got every tool you can imagine. He comes with all his plumbing tools. He's ready to go. And I don't even remember what the problem was, but I tell him what happened, and he comes in, and he looks under the sink, and he was under there for literally, I think, 15 seconds. And he fixed it. And he's like, it's taken care of. I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my dad.
So what do you take from him as, sounds like it was a good father figure.
Yeah.
Now as you're trying to like be that for your boys, like what did you learn? What have you learned from him that you're trying to instill as yourself as a father and pass down to your boys? And Jane, I mean, let's not forget about Jane.
Yeah, Jane.
You have great kids, but all of your kids.
Yeah. So I think the word I always think of with my dad is loyal. It's not very common anymore. My dad worked for the same company for it was like 32, 33 years, which I always find really impressive. I would say loyalty is one thing. My dad, he may not always he's not always very vocal, but when he does speak, I feel like it's always important and impactful. And that seems to be a theme in Proverbs, not a lot of words, but what you do say matters and is important.
I think that's called gravitas.
Yeah.
It's something I aspire to, but you can't fake it. Gravitas is like earned. Like when you're a man who lives, faithful life, who's respectful, like you said, like when you have a more discipline to not say something all the time, that's where I'm learning. I'm like spouting off the mouth too much, but when you speak, that your words by default then have weight to them, and people listen. Like, what a thing to aspire to. As far as we think about legacy, I don't know. I mean, maybe that just comes with age and experience. Maybe he would have said the same about himself when he was young, that he wasn't that way. But I want men to think that way about having weight to their presence, even just as far as we're the heads of our families. I hope by God's grace that we can all meet our grandchildren too, and just be that for them. Like, not to be like pretending we have it all together, but just to have like that dignity and a patriarch that like the whole family can lean on when things are hard, that they just know, whoever your grandfather name is going to be. I know white people like to have pop, pappy, and Mima, and all those kinds of things.
Pappy's
like,
all right.
we don't do that in the Hispanic world, whatever. But I just, what a cool thing to aspire to as I think about legacy. And God talks all the time about how one of his greatest blessings, this is Psalm 128, is that you can sit around your table that's full of your children and their children, and you can just experience the generations and watch them be faithful. And like, what a thing to aspire to. It is just so awesome.
Yeah, it is. I
think one of the cool things that you got to benefit from with your dad is your kid's got a granddad.
Yeah,
and that's tough for me because my parents aren't living. Not my grandparents, they're older, so it's expected that type of thing. But that is such a cool thing, like that you get your kids get a granddad, and how God works and that type of stuff. Because I remember spending time with my grandfather, Grandpa Tom. Just spending time with him, and it's that's a blessing in itself.
It is.
That I think gets overlooked a lot of times.
Yeah.
You're talking about him coming over, and my dad was very reliable, that type of stuff. But my wife's dad is one of those guys that just knows how to do every type of project. And you call him up, and he comes over and will do it for you. And it's kind of cool to see how God works through men that way. And it's now I feel this office I've redone pretty much by myself, but with his help.
Yeah.
But it's because he taught that type of thing. So I think that's a really good example of legacy of how God uses other individuals in our lives. Even my mom. I love my mom. My dad was kind of the same way. He was like, didn't talk at all, but when he talked, it was something you listened to.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool. That it's like, that's sick to hear. I don't know. It excites me. It's like,
that's good.
If for your kids, that type of stuff, that's awesome there.
Yeah.
So you started a landscaping business.
Yep.
I started my own business. Matt's part of this here. I consider him to be just with me in this business as well. Do you see them, your kids, something you hand down to your kids? How's that looking to you?
I hope so, but I don't want to force it on them.
Yep.
I don't want them to feel pressured to do it. I want to be able to say, look, I've got this thing here. I've put in the hard work. Not that you won't have hard work, because being a business owner is nothing but a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But I've got you this much further down the road.
Yeah.
If you want it, it's yours. If not, I'm not going to be upset. It would be cool, but I'm not going to be upset. And so I'd look at it as just as a way of being able to help them get that much further down the road. Heck
yeah, you're the ideal client. I was telling Matt this. When people come in and talk to me about estate planning, there's a lot of things that are upsetting, fights, all that type of stuff. But one of the most upsetting things to me with clients that come in is, I want to spend all my money. I want to, live the life, that type of stuff. And it's like, no. It's like, you're doing the hard work today so your kids can have it a little bit easier.
Right.
And that's the way my dad was. That's the way we're being with our kids, is that you're going to work, but we're going to set you ahead 20 steps. So you're sitting, a little bit better than before.
Right.
And that's the whole thing with estate planning, is trying to instill that in clients. And clients do what they want with their money. And I don't care if they hear this and say it. But when you're coming in saying, I want to spend all that money going on all these vacations, doing all that stuff's cool. You can do some of those things. But really, you need to be focusing on your children and where you're going to leave them moving forward and furthering God's kingdom.
Yeah.
I think it's the most disheartening thing is when people come in and say they're believers and they sit there and say, I want to spend all my money. That's very upsetting to me.
Yeah.
And it's really relieving to hear you have that.
I used to struggle with the idea of making a lot of money. Not that I'm fabulously wealthy right now or anything, far from it. But the idea of having a lot of money used to scare me because there are plenty of warnings in the Bible about the love of money and how money can just generally cause a lot of problems. I view it a lot differently now. I've had some people who have been pretty generous to me in my life financially, and I would love to be able to do the same thing in an extravagant way.
We're going to live close you on the air. Sounds like you need to get your affairs in order here. We got a good estate planning operation. I'm just kidding.
There's the sales pitch right there. You're not a client. Frankly, that's gross.
Turn to the camera. I'm not just an interviewee. I'm also a client.
So that's important to me. I want to be able to be generous.
It's one of our goals here.
Yeah, man.
Have I not said that to you time and time?
Times.
I was like, I want to give everything away.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah, and like I said, to be able to, my kids, whether it's all of them, part of them, one of them, just to be able to help. It's that covenantal thinking. It's not just me. It's how can I help my kids, my grandkids, possibly even further, Lord willing.
Yeah. I think we just talked about this a lot, is that this idea of covenantal thinking. I think it's a weird way of thinking in the culture today, especially in American culture. I hate when people sit there, oh, Americans do this and that. It's like, okay, let's chill.
Yeah.
But we're very selfish as a culture. It's, you go on to any social media and it's like, well, hey, I went to, Bali this week and then I did this. And you see all these, how to make millions of dollars in 25 minutes and stuff. And I think that's something that Matt's been really a blessing with that is, a lot younger, not a lot younger, but younger. And so I'm still learning.
An old man.
You guys are, you guys started at Geneva when it was first founded, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
but
200 years.
Remember
of
when they laid the
faithfulness.
cornerstone at Old Main? Yeah.
Now they have elevators. It would scare you. But this idea of covenantal thinking that we are one body, we are growing together. This lack of unity in the Christian community is very frustrating to me.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing a lot of young men, a lot of young women that are directionless.
Yeah.
And the church really doesn't know what to do with them, or they just don't want to do anything with them, which is very frustrating. And you're seeing it exemplified in just crazy ways. Girls are putting pictures up on Instagram that are just like, put some clothes on, or I go to Planet Fitness and it's like I have to look at the ground 90% of the time. And then there's, it's like we need to unify as a culture here to really provide some direction. It's like a captain without a ship without a captain right now. And it's very frustrating. And it's nice to see men like you, women like my wife, like Matt's wife. I'm assuming your wife's the same way. They're kind of trying to reorient the narrative with their children. My wife is, very focused on our children, what they're thinking, how they're viewing the world, and building this legacy. That's where I can do it here, sitting with clients. This is more about one of the coolest things is, and one of the most difficult things too, is you get to sit with these clients, and it's when you get the younger ones, it's more fun because you can direct them about, hey, your estate plan is a reflection of your kids.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions I get is, oh, who should we name as executor? I ask them, who should you handle it? And they have 4 kids. And it's like, well, which kid do you trust the most is usually the question I ask. But you can see it in their eyes of the clients of, wow, this is really a reflection of my kids and how I raised them. And, it's cool to see them say, well, all of them to work together. They get along. But then there's times it's like, well, I can't trust this one. I don't want to deal with this one. They write people out there. And it comes back to covenantal thinking. It's like, working together, building that unity and that type of stuff. I feel like Matt is a little bit more articulate and eloquent in talking about this stuff.
No, you're good, man. Well, I'll finish the thought here. If you're sitting in that chair, and you're asked about who do you want, to manage your estate and all that, this question pivots from there. What do you want to be remembered for? So you're thinking about your children, your grandchildren. What kind of stories do you hope your boys, Jane, tell their children about how their dad was? Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my life to be a testament to the greatness of my God and my King. That's my number one thought always. I don't want to bring any shame to my God, my family, anything like that. I want faithfulness to be one of the words, hopefully.
If you could go back, we know each other in college. I like to just think of that now compared to where we were. But if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him as far as what not to do, what to do, faster, better? Like what kind of advice? Because I'm hoping that we can reach people younger before they make as many mistakes as you and I both made in our lives. Yeah. What kind of advice would you give?
I would first tell him, stop wallowing in your self-pity. I think that looking back, that comes down to a lot of it. Yeah, there were some things that didn't go my way. But I mean, looking back on it now, I quite honestly I don't think I'd change anything because it's brought me where I am. And I have an amazing life. I am so thankful. I thank God every night, I promise, when I lay down in bed, like, Lord, thank you. Thank you for my health. Thank you for this beautiful woman that you've given me. Thank you for these amazing children, this business and these opportunities that you've blessed me with. Thank you for this new church that we've been going to. Like, I have nothing but to be thankful for. So I would, that's where I would start. Stop wallowing in your own self-pity. And something my mom used to always say, someone always has it worse than you. There's always someone that has it worse than you. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom in that comparison is the thief of joy. And that goes from the negative and the positive. You can always view other people, oh, they have so much more than me. It's true. People have, God isn't fair in the sense of he gives everybody the same. And some people do have it much worse than you. But the idea, and you mentioned faithfulness, the idea ought to be, what can I do with what God gave me and what God made me? So, instead of wishing away what God made you, all of your strengths, and wishing you were this or that, just figure out who God made you to be and do it, to the glory of God with excellence, like you said, to not bring dishonor and disrepute on him and the gospel, but just to beautify it, to just show others how great this God is, how merciful he is. Yeah. Like we keep none of us deserve what we have, but we have so much to be thankful for. Yeah. And we ought to just regularly reflect on that and be grateful for the things that he has given us instead of wishing we had something else. But really good, man.
Yeah. Well, attitude of gratitude is always what I try and tell my kids. Just
let's get thankful. Some more slogans in here. And you got anything?
We should just do 45 minutes of slogans.
Yeah.
No, it's really exciting to hear you say that because Christ died on the cross, and we're working through Luke at church, but I just read through that again, and it's like the Gospels. It's like this dude was whipped. To like the point of death, eventually died. I was like, it's like last time I checked, I'm not getting it. Yeah. And it's like I'm not being put on a cross and hated by literally everybody. I was like, I get upset when somebody doesn't like me. Yeah. Those people hate it and then murder them. And it's like, my life is cushy and
perspective. Yeah. It's all about perspective.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Unless you guys had anything else, but
do it.
Really appreciate you sharing some intimate stuff. I think that's really good to hear for other people. I'm sorry you had to deal with Matt for several years at Geneva College, but it's really cool you went to Geneva. Yeah. I always like meeting other Geneva grads. So I don't know why people go to Geneva, but we all seem to go there. So
and we all love it for the same reasons and probably dislike it for the same reasons.
But we appreciate it, and thanks for coming out, man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good.